I'm Chris Hassel. This is CBS Sports HQ. The very first domino falling in the free agent quarterback carousel. Drew Brees announcing he's coming back to New Orleans for another season. The 41-year-old making the announcement 4 weeks before free agents are eligible to sign with new teams. That likely means free agent Teddy Bridgewater is going to sign elsewhere, and Taysom Hill's situation still very much up in the air. He's a restricted free agent, but somebody could come in, pay him, and grab him. Brees made the announcement on Instagram saying, "My feelings about the 2020 season," there was a picture of a cliff. I don't think he meant like falling off the cliff or anything like that. Just a lot out there, maybe. Look forward to the grind and the journey, for the reward at the end will be worth it. Love you, Who Dat Nation. Let's make another run at it. All right, Pete Prisco is here. We also have Ryan Wilson. Pete, I feel like I'm way too tall for you here, so I'm going to just go down just a touch. There we go. Ryan Wilson, thank you for joining us as well. We're going to get into his latest mock draft in just a moment. But first, Pete, earlier today you said you were just a little bit surprised that Brees made this announcement today.
Well, because you heard, around league circles that there was a chance he was going to go to the broadcast booth, and you heard it might be the Monday night broadcast booth, and those opportunities don't come around that much. And it might not happen again for him, because what if they get somebody, if they do make a change, then the opportunity isn't there. So I did hear that, but again, this is a guy who loves to be competitive, and he has a drive like none other. And I tell this story a lot. Zach Strief told me, former player who now does their games on radio, told me that they had a ping pong table brought into the locker room, and Drew Brees was bad at it. And Zach Strief used to beat him all the time. And then one day he came in, and he'd been practicing over and over and over again, and Drew Brees beat him. That's the kind of guy Drew Brees is as a player. So it makes sense for him to come back and play.
Ryan Wilson, what did you make of Drew Brees making that announcement today that he's coming back for at least one more season?
Great news for Michael Thomas. Great news for Sean Payton. Sean Payton doesn't have to worry about figuring out his quarterback situation, and we can hopefully put the rest of Taysom Hill conversations for at least a year, maybe a little less than that, I'm sure. And then the question becomes what happens to Teddy Bridgewater. But I think the Saints are still in prime position in that division. It starts with Drew Brees. Has he dropped off a little bit? Sure, his arm strength isn't what it once was. But again, you bring in Taysom Hill to throw the 60-yard bombs, and everything else seems to sort itself out. Started with Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. And I think, again, this is the team to beat in that division. And it's all because Drew Brees is now coming back for at least one more year.
They were 13-3 last season, but had to play Wild Card Weekend, lost at home to the Vikings. Pete, what do you think they need in order to take that next step and get to the Super Bowl?
Well, you see him throwing to Michael Thomas. You see him throwing to Jared Cook, but you don't see him throwing much elsewhere. And they need to get another option for Drew Brees on the outside. Michael Thomas is arguably the best receiver in the National Football League, but he needs help. And I think if they can get him some help, some speed down the field, then I think that'll help open up the offense again. They also have faced some, tough decisions in free agency. They got a lot of guys that are key guys, guys on defense that are unrestricted free agents. They have to decide what they do with those guys as well.
Ryan?
I think to Pete's point, the fact that Michael Thomas did what he did with very little help around him is a testament to just how good he is. Ted Ginn's almost certainly gone. His contract's up. Maybe someone like Robbie Anderson would be enticing to the Saints. Again, as Pete mentioned, the salary cap will be a consideration. And, of course, they could find some guys at the draft as well if that's what they decide to do. But I think getting another playmaker for Drew Brees makes a lot of sense for a team that's already incredibly high-powered offensively.
This is just the first domino to go, and I know that other teams can't talk with free agents for another 3.5, 4 weeks. What do you think the next big
Sure they can't, by the way.
Well, they can go through other channels.
Yeah, they're doing it.
But nothing can officially happen.
The legal tampering can't happen for about a month.
But the illegal tampering.
And it's happening.
Underway?
And it'll really go high octane next week in Indianapolis, of course.
What do you think the next domino to fall is going to be?
Which quarterback goes next? I think Tom Brady's going back. That's just my feeling, and it's a gut feeling I've had. I think when you look around this league, what are his options? Could he go to the Raiders? Yeah, is that a better situation? Could he go to the Chargers? Is that a better situation? Maybe they have better weapons. I think what the Patriots will do, they will get Bill Belichick, Bob Kraft, and Tom Brady in a room, and they all will sit down and hammer it out, and they'll say, we got to get him help. And there's help on the free agent market. You can get a tight end. Maybe Hunter Henry. That would be a great guy to go get. Or Austin Hooper, and help him and then draft and supplement around him. But I think he goes back to New England.
No, I'm right there with Pete. I think Tom Brady's the first domino to fall, and I think we see sort of like that Steph Gilmore signing a few years ago in New England. It happens right away as soon as free agency starts. Maybe it's a Hunter Henry or Austin Hooper, as he mentioned. Maybe they trade for A.J. Green or swing a deal for a big wide receiver, and then Tom Brady's problems are magically solved. One issue with Tom Brady going to the Chargers, for example, and Philip Rivers can testify to this, that offensive line is terrible. In New England, at least he was relatively well protected. Get him some playmakers, and then he'll look like the Tom Brady we've seen in every year except for 2019.
Well, it appears the writing is on the wall for Teddy Bridgewater, who will be an unrestricted free agent in a couple of weeks. What do you think's next for him?
We were just having this conversation before outside of the show, and I was saying, where's the market for Teddy Bridgewater? And I went through it with Will Brinson. We were on his podcast, and where's the market? There really isn't much of a market. Is he going to go? If Philip, let's just say the dominoes fall. Brady goes back to New England. Rivers goes to the Colts. Tannehill goes back to the Titans. Winston is tagged in Tampa Bay. Where does Teddy Bridgewater go?
You got the Chargers out there.
But again, I hear they're going to draft and develop, which might be Justin Herbert at number 6. Then they play with Tyrod Taylor as their bridge quarterback. Where's he going? And, somebody had a report this week, $30 million a year for Teddy Bridgewater. No chance he comes close to that. He's going to get a contract that's probably like a 3-year deal, $22, $23 million a year. But where's it coming from? Carolina? If Cam Newton's healthy, he's $19 million a year. You bring him back. So I think this is going to be a less of a market for Teddy Bridgewater than people
What about
think.
Chicago, Pete?
If you're the GM of that team, do you tell the public and your team that I moved up to go get the quarterback and Mitch Trubisky, now I'm getting rid of him to go sign Teddy Bridgewater? I don't buy it.
Yeah, but if you're Ryan Pace, you're almost out of options at this point. You flubbed the Trubisky pick. But again, I agree with virtually everything you're saying, Pete. One other team to maybe keep an eye on are the Las Vegas Raiders. We know that, or at least it sounds like John Gruden's not crazy about Derek Carr. But again, does Teddy Bridgewater give you a huge upgrade over Derek Carr? Not necessarily. Maybe best case is to come back for another year or two in New Orleans and sort of try to wait out Drew Brees in much the same way Josh McDaniels is trying to wait out Bill Belichick. Who knows what'll ever happen, but I think you're right. He's not getting $30 million. He'll be lucky to get 22, 23. And then, again, as you just pointed out, where's the landing spot? I don't know if there is one.
Remember, he turned down Miami last year. There was an opportunity to go to the Dolphins and be the quarterback, and he turned it down. And talking to the Saints people, I asked him, I said, why? Because he likes it in New Orleans, and he liked the situation. And it played true to that because he got to play 5 games, and he went 5-0. I'm with Ryan. The best situation for Teddy Bridgewater, go back to New Orleans.
Well, how's the timing on this going to play out with Taysom Hill being a restricted
Well, you
free
put the
agent?
tag on him, and then somebody can go sign him, but it's an offer sheet. You can match it.
So you're saying that there's a chance the Saints could end up with all 3 of these guys again next season?
There's a chance.
They have enough money for that?
Well,
is it smart?
If they put the high-end tag on Taysom Hill, unless somebody goes and wows him with a mega contract, they're going to keep him at that relatively cheap price. So it's not that big.
But you're going to have to pay Teddy Bridgewater, and of course you're going to be paying Drew Brees.
Well, you might not have to pay. It takes 2 teams. If there's another team out there, then the price will go up. Where are the 2 teams for Teddy Bridgewater? I keep asking that question. I don't have an answer to it. I don't think anybody does.
Ryan?
Until the first dominoes fall.
Ryan, Taysom Hill, he wants to be a franchise quarterback, but he's a restricted free agent. What's next for him?
I want to be 6'2" and to be able to dunk a basketball. I can't do it. And I'm not convinced that Taysom Hill is anything other than a really spectacular, fun-to-watch gadget player. He excels at special teams. He can throw the ball 60 yards in the air. He can run routes. He can run the ball. That's all great. But Mo Sanu has thrown more passes in the NFL and thrown them more successfully than Taysom Hill. So I'm not sure how we went from that to that this guy should suddenly be a franchise quarterback. I feel like he's a great fit in this system. There may be 2 or 3 other teams where he would fit really well into what they do offensively. But if you're willing to give the reins of the offense over to Taysom Hill, having only seen what we've seen, I think you're taking a huge risk. That's something that Sean Payton, for example, can do. It's not something a coach on the hot seat would be wise to do if they were trying to keep their job.
I don't get the whole Taysom Hill phenomenon, to be honest with you. And I've had conversations with Sean Payton about him. He loves the kid. He's compared him back in the day. He compared him to Tony Romo. And I kind of chuckled. And I don't see it.
How?
Just the way because he had Tony Romo back in the day.
Yeah, but I mean,
just he thinks he
Romo's
could get
not
to
mobile.
He could get to that level. Romo was actually pretty mobile. He just didn't run around him. He could move, but this guy runs a lot better than Romo does. I don't see it, and it's an infatuation that this Twitter cult has grasped onto that I can't understand. And we had him on at the Super Bowl. Remember, nice kid, pleasant kid.
I'm a believer, man.
You are?
Talking to him at the Super Bowl, it seems like he's
also
heard
30.
I understand.
I mean, there are so many red flags. He's not a great passer. He's a weapon. He's a gimmick. If they thought so highly of him, how come Teddy Bridgewater played the 5 games that Taysom Hill didn't?
I see the headline now. Pete Prisco, Taysom Hill is a gimmick.
That's exactly what he is. That's exactly the headline.
Hey, Ryan, you came out with your latest mock draft before this Drew Brees news came out that he's returning. You had the Saints taking a quarterback in the first round. Are you sticking to that in Jordan Love?
Yeah, I'm okay with Jordan Love at 24. And I know I've done this a few months ago, and Pete actually gave me the Taysom Hill speech about how much Sean Payton likes him. But again, what do we know about Taysom Hill? Not much. And Jordan Love is a kid who his own former teammate at Utah State, Darvin Thompson, who plays for the Chiefs, told me at the Super Bowl that he has a little Patrick Mahomes in the way he plays, but he also needs to sit for a year, like Patrick Mahomes did in Kansas City, and grow into an offense. And I think there's no better destination than New Orleans, unless you're going to Kansas City, than for Jordan Love to go and learn an offense and learn how to play in the NFL after a tough 2019 season. He could be a lot of fun to watch in the right system. It's just a matter of does that fit happen and whether he's there at 24. I think he could be, given how poorly he played in 2019 despite his physical talent.
He's an intriguing prospect. He really is. You look at him, he can make all the throws. He impresses you at times. But then there are times he looks awful. He is going to be a tough evaluation for the entire league. And Sean Payton loved Patrick Mahomes, by the way. That was one of his guys. He was infatuated with him. If their comparisons are there to Patrick Mahomes, it could make sense for them to maybe eventually get their quarterback in the future. Again, in that scenario, it's Drew Brees, Taysom Hill, and then you draft a guy. It's not Drew Brees, Teddy Bridgewater paid, and Taysom Hill, because you wouldn't draft a guy in that scenario.
Saints have a lot of quarterbacks. Had a lot of quarterbacks last year. They could end up with 3 of them again this season. We'll see how it pans out. Ryan Wilson is going to come back with us, and as we're going to dive in a little bit more into the mock draft.